So talk to me about being raised Jewish culturally, though not necessarily religiously, and how you meandered away from that.
Well, yeah, that was the problem, actually, that I was raised to respect the traditions and to understand the traditions of Judaism. But God was really not a presence in my house. My mother was the most committed atheist I think I've ever met. She thought the entire thing was silly. She never, when I converted, she didn't care because she thought it's all nonsense anyway. My father had more of a sort of deal-making relationship with God, but none of it really informed the Jewish traditions that I was learning. So when I was bar mitzvahed, which I was very reluctantly, I already knew I didn't believe in any of it. I was given a lot of presents, a lot of jewelry and gold and savings bonds. And after about 6 months, I felt so guilty for having gotten up on a stage and said things that I didn't believe that I actually crept out in the middle of the night with this leather box full of jewelry and thousands of dollars worth of bonds. And I stuffed it into the garbage and threw it away. And I thought, I am done with religion. I don't want to have that sense of hypocrisy anymore. And that really continued throughout my life, in spite of the fact that as I trained myself to be a writer and read the great works of literature that meant so much to me, I started to realize that the gospel was at the center of all of them, that there was no Western culture without the gospel, that there was no Western sense of morality, no sense of freedom without the gospel. And all of these things started to speak to me and say, if all the things that you think are true, and if all the things that you find beautiful are beautiful, the gospels must be real, or at least there must be a God. And the problem I had is that I was a very troubled young guy, and I had a difficult relationship with my father. And in my late 20s, I went nuts. I went insane. And it was quite an experience. And I was in so much emotional pain. I was suicidal. I was delusional. I was in so much emotional pain that I thought, well, if I grab hold of God now, it's just a crutch. It's just a way of escaping this terrible pain that I'm in. Uh-huh. And so I had this it was this ornery sense that at the moment when I needed God most, and when I look back, I realized God was calling to me most.
Yes.
I can't embrace God because it would be fake, because I'm just in so much pain. By what I now consider to be a miracle, I found possibly the only psychiatrist who has ever healed a patient, and the patient happened to be me. He was a brilliant man who died only a couple of years ago, and he made me go sane. I've never seen anything quite like it. I've never met anybody who even claims to have gone from the place that I was to the sense of adjustment and joy and happiness and success in life that I then had. And I started to think to myself, well, gee, all of the logic that I followed to bring me to God still stands now that I'm no longer unhappy. And so I thought, well, maybe now I can believe because it's not a crutch. I'm perfectly happy.
So funny how we reason with ourselves. Keep going.
Yeah. And I started to pray, and just kind of accidentally started to pray, and it transformed my life. I wasn't praying to any specific God, but it transformed my life. And after about 5 years, I turned to God, and I said, you've transformed my life. You've made my life so much happier, so much fuller, so much richer. What can I do for you? You're God. I'm just some schmo. There's really nothing I can do, but I want to respond. And it was as if God spoke to me. I didn't hear a voice or anything, but very immediately in response, I felt, you should be baptized. And I remember I was driving my car at the time, and out loud, I said, you got to be kidding me, because at that point I was working in Hollywood. I, had a terrific career writing very hard-boiled mystery novels. I had a tough time with my father all my life, but now we'd kind of developed a separate peace. We were distant, but we were friendly. But that's all going to blow up if I become a Christian. But I had to. I went back and I reread the Gospels. I'd been reading them all my life as literature. And I went back and thought, well, what if I read them as the truth? And when I did that, I thought, oh, yes, this is what I believe. This is who I am. This is the person I've been talking to all this time. And so I was baptized, and it was remarkable. I was baptized kind of offhandedly. I didn't really believe in the ritual. I just thought, well, I should do it as a matter of integrity. Within 3 weeks, my wife, who knows me quite well, turned to me and said, you're a different person. You are a kind of serenity and joy and intensity has come over you that hasn't been there before. And it has continued in that vein. And the more I explore the Gospels, the more I come to understand them and kind of move away from sort of rote Christianity to a deeper relationship. that joy has only deepened and expanded. So it's been quite an experience.
Yeah, I know you joke that your wife married a liberal Jewish guy and she wound up with a conservative Christian guy.
It's a very patient woman, I know, yeah.
So because that was another transition in your life, all of this weaves together in your book and in your presentation and your thoughts today, all these transitions, but you used to be liberal. I mean, you were raised in New York, like most New Yorkers, you leaned left, and you've said something to the effect of, part of the thing that made you rethink it was the lies told about Ronald Reagan versus the truth of his results.
Right. Well, right. I remember when the Berlin Wall fell down, I thought everything that old guy said came true. Everything that he said was going to happen happened. But what really cemented this was that I left the country. It's funny. This is back at the end of the 80s. I was at a dinner party in New York, and we had a son, we had a daughter, and I made the remark at this dinner party. I said, boys and girls are really different. And this is way back now, right? It's about 89. And the table fell silent. And everybody was embarrassed that I would make such an inept remark and a politically incorrect remark. And I remember we were in a restaurant, and we left the restaurant. I turned to my wife and I said, we're leaving the country. That's it. I'm not going to be in a country where I can't speak the obvious truth. And so I moved to England for 7 years. We all went to England for 7 years. And what happened there was I was away from American politics. I didn't need to have an opinion about what was happening, what Bill Clinton was doing this week. I didn't need to have any opinions about American politics. I was completely immersed in the life of England. And when I got back, I suddenly realized that all my opinions were suddenly aligned with people who were on the right. And I remember Rush Limbaugh became a thing while I was in England, and I heard about how evil he was. And so when I got home, I thought, well, I want to just hear this evil guy. It's kind of interesting. I was listening to him thinking, hey, gee, he's not really that evil. I kind of agree.
I too am evil.
Yeah, I too am evil. And so it was a surprise. I'm not sure I would have been able to make that transition if I had stayed in the country. After all, like, as you say, I was a liberal Jew from the coasts. I was surrounded. I'm in the arts. I'm working in the movies. I'm working in publishing. I wasn't meeting any conservatives. I used to call the guys at National Review Online, I used to call my imaginary friends, because I would go on and kind of read their conversations online and think like, yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think too.
Yes.
Once 9/11 happened, I remember the moment. It was when David Letterman, after 9/11, obviously the late night comic at the time, came on and he said, I really have to think about this. Why do they hate us? And I thought, what do you mean, why do they hate us? They're the bad guys. They're supposed to hate us. They have this backward, angry, hateful religion, talking about these Islamist fanatics, they're supposed to hate us. We're the free guys. We're the freedom people. We're the tolerant people. And I realized that something, having been out of the country for so long, I realized something had gone terribly wrong with our culture. And I started going to conservative meetings and making little speeches about how we had lost the country at the movies and how conservatives don't pay attention to the culture. And Megyn, they used to look at me like I had wandered in off the street. Like it was kind of cute that I worked in Hollywood, but they had no idea what I was talking about. Now it's 20 years later and more, and people call me and they say, we remember you talking about the culture. We really have to do something about this.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.